This is Stein, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hotseat.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Dynasty Hot Seat. It's the only Dynasty show out there that is certified Inferno. And we got a really special guest on today. We've got Stein. You can find him at Twitter at _Jameson Stein. And he's here today, to give us his hints, to give us his tips, and to have a very special hot seat mock draft, because for the first time, we've got all these brand new rookies that are going to be in this startup mock draft. And Jay has the privilege of being the first guy to have a go and see where these rookies will land in, the overall grand scheme of the NFL. Jay does absolutely amazing work over. You can probably see on his t-shirt a little hint at where he's doing some great work. Over at the Dynasty Nerds, a great team over there. He has some great articles like the Intelligent Fantasy Football Investor. And you can also, if you're not already a member of the Dynasty Nerds Nerd Herd, you can sign up and use his promo code INVESTOR to get yourself 15% off. How amazing is that? So even before he said a word, he's already given you some excellent treats. How good is that? Jay, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Oh, and thanks so much, Connor. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your awesome show here. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, as I said, though, Jay's going to give us some hints and tips. So we're going to get right into, section number 1, which is the art of war. And this Jay's, hints and tips for Dynasty players. You might be a new player. You might be a super seasoned pro. You might be somewhere in between, but Jay's got you. He's going to help you out with the hints and tips. So what do you got for us?
Yeah, so my tips. I come from an investments background. So largely what I try and do in the fantasy football space is to take those investment concepts that I've learned over time and apply them to fantasy football.
Awesome.
And the first one I wanted to talk about was the concept of value. And in investing, in value investing, it's just about buying something for less than its fundamental value is. Value sometimes gets a bad rap because a lot of people think it just means buying like the cheapest assets out there or something at a lower price asset. But it's really not about that. It's about the price you pay versus what that asset is worth. There's lots of different ways that fantasy football people look at value in the space. One way I particularly like is wins above replacement or WAR. And there's many, many other options out there to think about value. But I came up with my own particular way to do it, taking some of those investments concepts and applying it to this fantasy football. First, before I get started there, one thing I wanted to get out of the way here is price is what you pay for something and value is what you get from something. And this is one of the most important pieces that I think people don't quite get right. Price and value are not the same thing. Price is what you pay to get that fantasy player, whether that's ADP or when you're trading, if you're using trade calculators, that the KTC price or whatever. And value is what that player is fundamentally worth. So the premise for my development of value here is that fantasy players' value should be based on the relationship between a player's price and his earnings or his PE ratio. I'm not sure if you heard of PE ratio before. That's something you use in the investment world. So in my example, applying it to fantasy football, price is the number assigned to him on keep trade cut or his KTC, and fantasy points on a per game basis, the PPG for the player is the player's earnings. So if you put it together, his PE ratio, his price to earnings ratio, equals his KTC price divided by his points per game. And that would be his measure of value. And then you take that PE ratio, and on a relative basis, you compare it to other similar assets on a like-for-like basis. And the one with the lower PE ratio is the one that you're getting a better value from. You're getting more points for the amount of price you have to pay for that. And the best way to look at that, to use that PE, is looking at within positions, and you can set it up in tiers or clusters. But the point is, you're looking for like. You can't use PE ratios of Tom Brady versus Justin Fields. It makes it tough to do that. But when you're looking at Justin Fields versus Trey Lance or Trevor Lawrence, then you can kind of get an idea of what what PE can help you when you're trying to pick between the two. So that's my first tip. I'll encourage you to read more about that in the Intelligent Investor series on Dynasty Nerds, if you're interested in that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. That is really, really fascinating to me. I love like how you've taken your expertise in like one area and just, applied it into here. And, the great thing about, fantasy football is you can, dig into, almost an infinite amount of stats and numbers and, things that have different correlations. And, I think you've done a really good job with that and just finding, those nuggets of value and those sort of golden players. Like, off the top of my head, you people like your Brandon Cookses and people like that who, their price and their value, are completely, skewed a little bit. You get those players like that, all the time, and finding people like that is so important for, building these championship teams. So I absolutely love that. I really do encourage people to get over and read those articles that are up on Dynasty Nerds, and you can just head over to Jess Twitter to find them really quickly. So what a brilliant first tip. What else have you got for us for tip number 2?
Yeah, appreciate that. So the next tip here, and Connor, I hope it's okay. I got even more than 3, so hopefully that's good too.
Oh,
but
bring them all. I mean, I need all the help I can get. I know that.
So the second one I got here is a good player versus a good investment. We spend a ton of time trying to figure out who the good players are, who the bad or mediocre players are. And I agree that is an incredibly valuable process to understand who is going to be good and who is going to be bad. But objectively, a good player does not necessarily mean that he is a good investment. If that good player is acquired for less than his fundamental value, then yeah, he's probably a good investment. But that's just it. Good players can be good investments or bad investments. They can be either. One of the best ways to create value in Dynasty Fantasy Football is to correctly identify valuable rookie players as they come into the league. So here's an example. In last year, using Superflex ADP, you had to use pick 1.06 to acquire Najee Harris in your rookie drafts. So when you're thinking about price for that, that's about $5,000 when it comes to KTC. And Harris is now at a KTC price of around $6,500. So his price appreciated about 30%. Now, whatever your views are on what Najee Harris is, a good player or maybe a mediocre player that has an offense that gives him a lot of volume, that's not really the point. The point is that in May of last year, he was a great value. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's a great value right now. And I venture to tell you that, looking at PEs, that maybe he isn't at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's the next tip there. Good player versus good investment. Good players can be both a good investment or a bad investment, depending on what the price you're paying is.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely great advice as well. Like, it's maybe sometimes easy to get caught up in, this, especially, now as well with like kind of people in the rookie fever a little bit. Like people are like, oh, I need to get Christian Watson, or I need to get, Skye Moore on my team. And then it's just overpaying for that pick, or, people are like, oh, I need to get Najee Harris after that. And, people aren't going to accept that price that it was, at the start of last year. You're not going to get Najee Harris for pick 1-6 in this draft. But then does that mean that you should go out and pay 2 first for Najee Harris? Maybe not. I love that. Yeah, you have to look at each thing in a separate kind of vacuum of value and price and value. Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to start using those 2 terms, a lot more, and and look at them as two separate things. So I really like that as a second tip. So you got tip number 3 for us as well now, Jay. What do you have for us?
Yeah, tip number 3. So this one is a concept called compounding. So investing, compounding basically means making money on money. A lot of people think about it as compound interest. You learn about it in school.
Yeah.
It's also creating wealth. Having your wealth to create more wealth. So wealth on wealth.
Yeah.
And in Dynasty Fantasy Football, it's also possible to compound your wealth as well. The way to do that is to trade down the price curve and accumulate draft picks while you're not giving up too much production-wise. So you have two assets that are fairly similar. One has a very high price and one has a very more reasonable price. You trade the high price one for a reasonable price one, collect your draft pick, and you're not giving up too much from a production or opportunity perspective. So where you're creating the most value there is you're accumulating draft picks or plus more, whatever it is. Draft picks are almost always rising in price until you use them. They never get hurt and are a common medium of exchange, i.e. you can always, there's always a market for them.
Yeah.
And the best part is now that you have a guaranteed appreciating asset, you can use those assets to create more wealth for your dynasty team. So just to kind of put a bow on it here, if you can find undervalued players with similar production or outlook to yours that are cheaper in price, you can trade your player for the cheaper player plus more. Then you can use that plus more to create more wealth for your team. And so that's kind of a concept that I like to use in Dynasty Fantasy Football as one way to go about it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And, that can be done like using a lot of people come on here and talked about, the importance of, not just having rankings, but actually using like tiers. So if you can trade back for someone in the same tier and then get that, that bonus just like for free, essentially, then yeah, you're playing with house money. And that's great. That's something I wish, we'd be able to sort of play around with in the future on the show, when people are doing their drafts. We'd be able to get a feature where you can actually trade those picks in that mock draft tool. That would add an extra little wrinkle that would be cool into the show. So yeah, I love that as your third tip. And now you got some bonus tips for us as well.
Bonus.
Yes.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, I mean, that you're just mentioning, Kyle Pitts, no matter what your view is on him or not, his price is so high. It's silly not to take him, even if you don't have a very good outlook for him, and then you trade him for Mark Andrews plus. I mean, there's so many opportunities. Always be looking for trying to compound. Always be compounding.
Yeah. Kyle Pitts' value is so high. I literally have never tried to buy him off someone because I don't want to see what will come back my way. So only shares of Kyle Pitts I have are the ones I've drafted. I've never tried to buy him. Yeah.
And then it's really fun to be on the other side because you see all these, ridiculous trades out there that you get to reap the rewards from that if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tip number 4, the title on this one's Keep Calm and Carry On, or Emotional Stability here. And so the point here is markets are pretty efficient, but they're not completely efficient. And a lot of that has to do with people not acting rationally. And the one I want to talk about was the pendulum effect. So when investors are not acting rationally, they create a pendulum effect of euphoria and depression. So it's a boom or a bust. Once the pendulum is swinging, the asset's price will likely move too far one way or the other. This causes the market to over or underprice assets frequently. The pendulum effect happens all the time in fantasy football. For example, I'm going to give you an example of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. A rookie running back drafted in the first round. Then the team that drafted him has an excellent offense with no competition at the position. The price of the rookie skyrockets before he even plays it down in the NFL. It's pure euphoria. The market pendulum swings too far to the positive, and that same player has a couple mediocre seasons riddled with some injuries or poor circumstances. That player's price plummets. It's depression. The pendulum probably swings too far in the negative direction. The point here is that a player's price is probably somewhere in the middle of the pendulum price swings. And value can be created if you take advantage of those extreme market prices. So you buy players when the pendulum swings too far to the negative, and you sell players when the pendulum swings too far to the positive. So that was number 4. And then I'll do get further into my bonus here a little bit.
Fantastic.
So as I said before, a good way to create value is to hit on rookie picks. And the best way to hit on rookie picks is to be familiar with them before they get to the league. And the best way, I think, to be familiar with them before they get to the league is to participate in Devy leagues, campus to Canton leagues, or college fantasy football leagues. Even if it's not high stakes, just getting in there and getting familiar with these guys and having a general understanding of who they are and how good they are is going to be tremendously helpful for when you do your rookie drafts and you see them enter the league. So I'd recommend getting started right away in some of those types of leagues if you aren't already. And if you need help, I know it'll make you become a better Dynasty player. If you need help getting started or finding leagues, over at Dynasty Nerds, we'll help you do that, and you can reach out, and I'd be happy to help as well.
That's really cool. Then, I'm certainly not in. I'm not in any Devy leagues myself, even, and it's something like I've been thinking about joining. And I was even thinking, and maybe some listeners as well, it's like, where do you even go? Like, can you do Devy on Sleeper? Can you do Devy on, Flea Flick? What do you need to be able to do Devy? What is the kind of setup, or is there certain websites you need to go to?
Oh yeah, I can help you answer all those questions. I think that's an awesome idea. We should set up a Dynasty Hotseat Devy League.
Yes,
I'm up I'll commission it for you if you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
And we can get it going.
Yeah, man.
And then one last thing, just because we're getting into the almost to where the seat gets really hot, and I'm not sure if I'll remember it when we get there. But I just wanted to go through my my setup here real quick. So these are some of the things I like to have on hand when I'm doing my draft. I like their rankings, tiers, or clusters, whatever your flavor is, and I like to compare that to what we're seeing on ADP. I also like to keep KTC open, or you can do whatever your favorite Dynasty calculator is. Yeah. But I just like to have a good idea of what prices are as I'm scrolling through the ADP and what the tiers are, just so I can understand what's kind of falling, if there's high priced players that are falling. Like KTC, the pricing on Jalen Waddle is really high right now compared to what your rankings show or what's on ADP at Dynasty Nerds. Yeah. And so just kind of have an understanding that if I draft him, I could sell him for a lot more than if I get him later in the draft. And the other thing I have open is the RLads depth charts. You can look at whatever your favorite source is for depth charts, but I like to have a good idea of what the situation is as I'm selecting players, especially when I get to the later rounds into 15 and 16. And it gives you a good idea, and that they make projections of if rookies are going to be, where they're going to be in the depth charts and as such. And just, some rules while I'm going through in the draft is, I'm looking for players that are undervalued or overvalued while I go through this. Not exactly looking for the ones that are exactly valued. Yeah. And the reason is the undervalued ones, I'm looking for price appreciation. The overvalued ones, I'm thinking about what I can trade. Yeah. How I can compound them. So, taking the Kyle Pitts, how I make that into Mark Andrews plus more, whatever they are. So, as we go through this draft, sometimes, you might question like, oh man, that guy's pretty overvalued. I wouldn't pay that price for him. But what I'm thinking about is, well, that's a high price. What can I get for him on the other side of it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking about, like we've had last week, even just Ali was saying, it's like, you need to remember, like once the draft ends, those players are on your team. Like you can do whatever you want with them then. Like you're not drafting your starting lineup necessarily. Like you're drafting because you've got the future planned out. This is Dynasty. You got like years and years and years of these players. So yeah, you're not drafting your starting lineup. You're drafting your future lineup almost in a weird way. If that makes any sense.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That is brilliant. And you'll have all of those things ready sitting in front of you as you're about to sit in the hot seat for our mock draft, the first one this year, including the brand new rookies. And that's coming right up in part 2 now. Okay, here we are. We're in part two where things, really start to get, heated up here on the Dynasty Hot Seat. And Jay, you're now firmly sitting in the hot seat. Very different experience to part number one. How are you feeling now? You're about to embark on this journey.
My seat is getting hot. It's getting hot.
That's what we like to hear. And we've got our startup, 12 teams, Superflex, 18 rounds, including those new rookies, which we can't wait to see where they're going to end up. And, the first question we were sort of chatting just kind of off air there about, what position you would take. And, Jay, much like Ali last week, he's going to be a bit of a team player for people watching. He's not going to take the pick that he would want in an ideal world, but he's going to take one just to entertain you listening and watching. So that is great to hear. Jay, what position are you going to go for?
Yes, so I've seen all your shows. I kind of recorded down who took what, when. And I saw 9 of your 17 total shows went with 1.03 or higher. Yep. 15 of the 17 went with 1.06 or higher. Yep. And then there's 2 guys that went with the back half, one with the 10th position and one with the 12th position. So ordinarily, if I was doing this and I got to pick, which you don't necessarily always get to pick, I'd probably go for spot 3. But for the sake of variety, I think we're going to go with slot 11 since nobody's taken that one before.
Slot 11, the first person to choose slot 11. That is fantastic.
That's right. So
we got everything locked in. So Jay is about to get going with this mock draft from position number 11. So here we go. Pick number 11 is locked in. So let's just start the draft and see who ends up there. As you'd imagine, you got Mahomes, Allen, Jonathan Taylor. They're coming off the board pretty quickly. Justin Herbert went at 5. That's a pretty big
what
shock.
Is that?
Yeah, that's throwing a little curveball out there. I know it doesn't always go fully to ADP, which is interesting, but yeah, Murray above Herbert. That's a bold decision by team number 4, whoever they are. But it's left us with
Taylor.
Yeah, it's left us with a lot of great players still on the board. Deshaun Watson sitting up at the top, pretty risky pick, but it is Dynasty. He will miss a few games probably this season, but he's still young enough that it shouldn't really matter in the long term. And DeAndre Swift and Dak Prescott sitting up there too. Anyone standing out to you in your system and looking through your charts and your statistics, is anyone there you're thinking that is value? Kyle Pitts is there, we did talk about earlier.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to save Kyle Pitts for. I pick in a couple picks here, so I think I'm going to save him for the second round.
Yeah,
and I subscribe to the same view that in Superflex you have to focus on the QBs.
Yeah,
and right now, whatever your opinion is on his personal dealings, Deshaun Watson is elite QB.
Yep.
In a new team, and whatever his suspension is, whether that's 8 games or not, he is an elite producer on the field, and I think we got to go with Deshaun Watson for pick 1 here.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson, absolutely. He must have been, somebody on, your sort of price and value radar just a couple of months ago, because, in startups, you could be getting Deshaun Watson in. I got him in the 9th round in one startup over the summer, which was over a few months ago, which was absolutely bonkers. Like round number 9, you're getting Deshaun Watson. And, I've not played a game yet in that league, but, looking at it now, it's looking pretty good.
He's sort of the bottom of that first tier, and maybe you break the tier up, but if you go and you look at Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and then who I'd say is also fills out that tier, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, I think Deshaun Watson fits at the very bottom of that, over even guys like Dak Prescott or Joe Burrow. Yeah. Even though he's, maybe sitting half a season here, because he just provides that elite, that fantasy points from a fantasy points perspective.
Yeah, he's got the rushing upside. And then, the last full season he led the league in passing yards. So he's completely elite. I agree. And you got to love getting him at that value at the back end of the first round. And, like you said, we're right on the board again. At the start of the second, pick 2.2. With Dak Prescott still there, that's going to be interesting. And Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, and Kyle Pitts sitting up at the top of the draft board.
Yeah, Dak Prescott is very interesting, and keeping the theme of QBs. But when I'm looking here at KTC, Kyle Pitts is the highest price asset left on the board. And I think I mentioned this before. Even if you're not interested in keeping Kyle Pitts on your team, you could take him here and then practice compounding, and you could trade him down for Mark Andrews, who may or may not produce at a similar rate. Because maybe you're giving up a few years there, but you could also pick up a couple draft picks or one draft pick in next year's draft. The things I like about Kyle Pitts is he's kind of the unicorn player, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a wide receiver playing tight end, and you're looking for that wide receiver production. In Superflex tight end premium leagues, I think I see Kyle Pitts going even higher than where we're getting him here in the second round. And so, I think this is when you're thinking about, what you can sell a guy like Kyle Pitts for, or even if you want to keep him on your team and play that strategic advantage of getting wide receiver production from your tight end slot, the slot where you have to draft, or you have to play a tight end every week. You got to go with Kyle Pitts here.
Yeah, love it. I was thinking suspicion you might take Kyle Pitts there after our instant tips. So let's get Kyle Pitts locked up, sort of with the intention of, trying to get Mark Andrews plus there, just like we were saying before. You're not drafting your starting lineup here. You're drafting with value in mind and getting your team to be the best, with these players or without them.
Yeah, hey man, I'd be really happy with Mark Andrews and a late first next year. I'm as the entire Dynasty community knows, I'm pretty excited for the 2023 rookie class. I got about 6 players that I think are like very high, that I put very high in my Dynasty rankings currently. So there's lots to look forward into 2023.
That's music to my ears, because the last sort of two years, all I've been doing is just getting rid of all of my 22 picks and trying to get 23 picks and as a replacement. And, now I'm feeling pretty sad because, you're seeing all like the nice highlight videos, you've seen the drafts, you're like, oh, no, I don't have any. I traded up to get Breece Hall and I literally have not made another rookie pick yet, I don't think, because my drafts are going on, but I'm not on the clock yet because I'm in round 4. So it's pretty sad now, but I think next year I'll be pretty happy with all my 23 firsts.
Yeah. Oh man, I was not expecting Justin Fields to be on the board here. Wow.
Justin Fields is, at the back end of the third round. Justin Fields is still there. Matthew Stafford is still there. Mark Andrews is still there. Even I don't think you'll take him now, but some really, really good prospects available there. And splitting the 2 quarterbacks, you got Stephon Diggs and T. Higgins still sitting there. And Breece Hall, there he is. Look at that, our first rookie.
There he is.
Breece Hall is sitting there as well. So
I actually put out some rookie tiers, and my top tiers for this year's rookie class is Breece Hall, Treylon Burks, and Drake London. And we're going to try and nab all 3 of those guys in this draft.
Ooh, nice.
Maybe we can plan it out a little bit in our heads here, but let's try and get all 3 of those guys.
Nice.
So I think, just given where Breece Hall's position, and I'm picking in a couple of spots here, I think I'm gonna go with Justin Fields here at the top.
Yeah.
Now, I'm of 2 minds here. The QBs, it's generally rookie or young QBs don't tend to produce very well, but they tend to be pretty expensive. To start off. So this is where a Matt Stafford PE would be way, way, way lower than a Justin Fields. But here we're playing for what Justin Fields can be, not what he is right now.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields is part of that that combo of rookies last year. I put Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence in there with him, but those, really good prospects, Konami guys that I think could reach into that elite tier. And when you go from where we are here to that elite tier, there's a ton of price appreciation. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'm a 2-time Buckeye grad, so I got to see Justin Fields up and close and personal. The guy is an amazing quarterback, an amazing prospect. I think the only hesitation from him is the supporting cast in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You have the turnover of the front office. Turnover at coach. What they did in the free agency and the draft doesn't necessarily give you too much optimism towards his outlook for this season. But I can't pass up on the opportunity to draft a guy that we're in Superflex here that can appreciate in so much value. And I'd be fine also applying compounding to a guy like Justin Fields if you're not comfortable holding on to him. Whatever the difference is in KDC between Justin Fields and I don't know what Kirk Cousins, or if you even want to go down less, you can go to Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And probably pick up a first or something like that to do it.
Even the two players there, look at Justin Fields, and just 2 slots below him is Matthew Stafford. I think you could get Matthew Stafford plus for Justin Fields.
Right. And so this is where the difference is between using value on your trades and thinking about how you want to incorporate that when you're drafting. Mm-hmm. When you're drafting, you're thinking about where the prices are. And you're actually maybe sometimes looking for those overvalued pieces that then you can then flip. And I think Justin Fields is a good candidate where, maybe people are a little bit down on him, but his prospect profile is pretty great. And he could be one of those guys that his price appreciates just tremendously. So
I'll
go with Justin
agree.
Fields.
So let's get Justin Fields locked up, and we're hoping to not see any green flash up for Breece Hall. I think we're safe, as it was Stafford and Stephon Diggs come off the board. Breece Hall is still there. I'm guessing we're not going to wait until the next round because he won't be there. Are we going to go for the first rookie picked on the hot seat this year, Breece Hall?
This is the first rookie picked on the hot seat, Breece Hall. And you know what? He's the consensus 1.01 in rookie drafts. And I think he deserves it. He was a high-end producer in college. I think there were some question marks about his athleticism, and then he goes to the combine and just kind of blows that away.
Yeah.
And then there was no doubt. And then you go to the NFL draft, and there were maybe some more favorable landing spots that he could have been in. But I think what the Jets are building it could be something special, and the type of assets they're putting around Zach Wilson, I guess we'll find out pretty soon whether he's can hang and is good or not. But I think the setup here for Breece Hall is absolutely perfect, and I don't think I can wait another round. I think you got to go Breece Hall in the fourth here.
Yeah, the Jets are sort of rapidly becoming one of my favorite teams, in the NFL. I love, Zach Wilson. I think he's great. And then, after this draft, you could make the argument that they got the best running back, the best receiver, and the best corner in the draft. That is a slam dunk. So I think, Robert Saleh and his team there are just doing a great job. And Breece Hall, he's going to be a star, I think. So let's get him in our team.
That's right.
And we got a bit of a wait now till we're all the way back in sort of the back end of round number 5. And we're hoping to get those 3 rookies. So we'll see if any of them pop up. Is Kenneth Walker going pretty high there in the 4th round, coming off the board as the 2nd rookie, going above people like Travis Kelce and DeAndre Hopkins, Devonta Smith. Wow, that's pretty high for Kenneth Walker. Are you seeing him go that high in any of your drafts?
Yeah, I am. I think rookie fever is in place here.
Yeah, I think so.
I like Kenneth Walker. He did well in some of the metrics that I look at in terms of like yards created, and missed forced tackles and stuff like that. But I worry about the landing spot. I know in Seattle they like to pound the rock.
Yeah.
But I really think Rashad Penny might be the guy there for a majority of the season.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure that we get the type of price appreciation, especially with him going as high as Breece Hall is, essentially, that you'd want to look for in drafting a rookie running back in the fourth or fifth round. So that's kind of where I'm thinking about Kenneth Walker. Also, when I was doing my rankings, I had Walker 2 rounds behind that top tier, two tiers down in my third tier. So that just kind of gives you an idea of, obviously I'd like to get him when I'm thinking about rookie drafts. I'd like to get him, but when he's going in the third or the fourth, that's not really where I'd take him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And here we are now sitting in the back end of the fifth round, and one of those names has popped up there. You got some more rookies. Yeah, you got Treylon Burks sitting there.
I guess who's there.
But he is sort of a little bit far down. But we got 2 picks, before we get back to our time on the board. So you got, Josh Jacobs and Mac Jones and Michael Pittman sitting there before him. Is anyone else standing out to you?
Like Treylon Burks is just throwing daggers right at me. That's the only one my eyes can gravitate to. But just going to the top of the board here, I like Josh Jacobs. I really like him coming out. You have a new regime there. They drafted a guy named Zamir White, and they didn't pick up Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option.
That's
I really like
interesting.
Zamir White. I really like Zamir White. He was taken in the 4th round, so he didn't really get the draft capital I was looking for. But it's sort of an interesting scenario. Is Josh Jacobs going to be a Raider next year? One theory is that if he's not going to be a Raider, they really run him this year, get as much value or best use out of him as they can. So he could be one of those sleeper picks, but you just got to make sure you're selecting him at the right spot. I've never been too high on Mac Jones. I think he's a very adequate NFL QB. I'm not sure. I particularly like quarterbacks that have that sort of rushing upside to them, and I'm not sure Mac Jones gave you that. And then one thing I see Treylon Burks. I'm also really high on Garrett Wilson. He's the top of the next tier. But I want to know where Drake London is. Could you look at just the wide receivers? I want to see how far down Drake London is. So
pretty far down. He's wedged in between Rashad Bateman and Marquise Brown at the minute. I would have him a little bit higher than that. I'd have him, more around your Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton area. Yeah.
So I don't think that I'm going to be able to get Burks, Wilson, and London. So I think because I got London in that tier with Burks, I'm going to go Burks and then London, and I'm taking players that are lower on their ADP than what you'd normally want to do. You'd kind of want to stick closer to the top end of the ADP and see if you can get those guys to fall. But what I'd kind of say here is these rookies after the NFL draft, nobody knows really where to take them yet. I think we haven't really figured out where the consensus is moving yet.
Yeah.
And if you get these, the Drake Londons, the Treylon Burks here, and they have really good off seasons, their price could just appreciate from here. And like when last year, for instance, Jamar Chase started out rookie drafts in the 5th or 6th round. Startup drafts in the 5th or 6th round right after the draft. And by the time you get to right before the season, you're having to take Jamar Chase in the 2nd or 3rd round. And just that amount of appreciation you can get, especially at the top of the draft, then you could do the compounding and trade Treylon Burks for a Marquise Brown and a first,
Yeah.
or those types of moves as you get closer. But Treylon Burks and Drake London, that's my next tier. I'm super excited about Treylon Burks's landing spot. It kind of worked out pretty well when his closest comp gets traded, and then they draft him in AJ Brown to the Eagles.
Yeah.
And so you kind of know what his upside is potentially there. And I'm not saying he starts out the game, starts out the year and he's automatically has AJ Brown upside, but like the path to envision what he can become is pretty easy for fantasy players to understand. And I know the Titans is not historically a high volume passing offense. So basically, the amount of targets he gets per game is going to be lower than maybe some of the other guys. But Burks is really good with the ball in his hands, and so just like AJ Brown, I think he can make the best of the opportunities that he's given. So even if I have to keep him on my team and his price doesn't appreciate, I think I like to have Burks on my team. So I'll go with Burks for this pick.
Yeah, Burks, I think, is a great pick. I mean, look, you're sitting, round number 5, and AJ Brown is long gone. He's been picked a while ago, and Treylon Burks is going to get, the majority of those targets that are left void from AJ Brown in Tennessee. So, great discount there on a player that, you're right. He was comped to AJ Brown, and he's filling AJ Brown's shoes. Like, it's so clearly the replacement. Like, it's just, there's no need to overthink it. I don't think it's just he's the guy now. He's the replacement. Let's see what he can do. So we got him locked up, and you were thinking maybe going Drake London now as well. Are you still thinking that?
So like this is a tough one. Like I came into this kind of hoping I can get Treylon Burks, Breece Hall, and Drake London.
Yeah.
Like in the ADP here for Dynasty Nerds, you're seeing guys like Garrett Wilson, quite a bit higher than Drake London.
Yeah.
And I really like Garrett Wilson as a prospect. A Buckeye, somebody where I watched every one of his games.
Yeah.
One of the things that, I was a bit disappointed with through the draft evaluation process was his size. He didn't quite line up with what OSU had said he was. He's a bit smaller. From a weight perspective, that's something that I pay attention to. I like to look at when I look at rookies. I like to look at their production, their size, their age, those types of things, and their athleticism. And so I was a bit disappointed with Garrett Wilson. That's why he's one tier below these guys, but he's the next in line. And if I was being really cute and I wanted to stick with this kind of rookie theme, I'd try and take Garrett Wilson here before Drake London. But I'm going to go with how I think that these prospects should play out over time. And Drake London is a great prospect.
Yeah.
He has it all. He has the size, the athleticism, the production in college was exactly what you'd want to see. He's young. And he goes to a team where I'm not exactly, thrilled about the QB situation, the guy throwing him the ball.
Yeah.
But he's the clear-cut number one from a wide receiver perspective. And then if you throw in the Pitts perspective, where, Pitts is a wide receiver playing tight end.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for defenses to stop these guys. If you cue in on one, the other one's going to get you. And whoever the third pass catcher in that offense ends up being, that's one that I'd pay attention to. But so from a QB perspective, there looks like they're going with Mariota, but they also drafted a guy named Desmond Ridder, who went in the third round, I believe. Is that right?
He was the second. He was the second quarterback, I think, taken. Yeah.
But generally, when I think about QBs, I like to see QBs in the first round. Yeah. If you're past the first round, I worry about you getting replaced at some time.
Yeah.
So this season for the Falcons, I imagine that they're not going to be very good. and Mariota will at some point give up the reins to Ritter so that the front office can see what they have in him, and he can either be good or bad. But if he's bad and the Falcons are bad, then you maybe get an elite QB next year to pair with your London and Pitts here.
And then Calvin Ridley maybe comes back as well, and then it's just then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this team's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You get a really good QB in there to pair with those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm going to go. This is definitely a reach, and you might be thinking rookie fever here, but I think I'm going to go with London so I secure my top tier of the rookies that I'm looking to get.
Love it. And in the start of round 6, you've achieved your goal. You come in with a plan, and I think it's great to have a plan in rookie drafts as well. Be like, this is what I want to do with my team, and you've gone out there and you've done exactly that. And people like Garrett Wilson now coming off the board as we're waiting for the back end of round number 11, and those people we talked about earlier, like Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, I'm sure will be off the board pretty soon as well. And here we go. The end of round number 11. I've just got wide receivers on. I'll turn all the positions on so we can see who we got. Rashad Bateman is sitting there. Oh, actually, no, Rashad Bateman, that was right where Drake London. Wow. So there was a chance that actually Drake London may not have come back to you there. So yeah, it looks like an excellent pick taking Drake London there. You may have thought it was a reach, but you never know in the hot seat. You never know what's going to happen. So yeah, I really like that pick there. You must be pretty pleased with it now.
Oh yeah, I'm happy I got that. And you know what I'm really happy to see? I'm happy to see Rashad Bateman at the top of this board here. So there's a couple things I'm thinking about here. I kind of went rookie heavy here, or young heavy. So I want to make sure that at least some of my team has some production. So I'm thinking about guys at the quarterback in rounds 8, 9, and 10 of how I can fill out those players.
Yeah.
So my room right now is Deshaun Watson and Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Watson might not play for half a season, and Justin Fields is in a tough situation. So when I think about who I want for my quarterback room, I'm thinking guys that are producers. So could you click on QBs? I'm thinking guys like potentially Derek Carr.
Tom Brady is still there. There's the honor system in play on the hot seat, which is, Tom Brady's ADP took a plummet when he, retired, and he's sort of creeping back up now. So it's, some people have just left it, be like, I'll take Tom Brady in the 16th round, and other people would be like, no, I'll do the honorable thing and take him earlier. So it's up to you completely what you do.
Yeah. So it looks like Derek Carr is far enough where I can get him potentially 2 rounds later.
Yeah.
And Tom, I could maybe get him in the 8th or the 9th, and I could get Tom Brady in the 9th or the 10th and be perfectly safe. I'm not exactly sure where Tom Brady's ADP is, but when you think about like how much time he has left from a dynasty perspective, I wouldn't be drafting him in the 4th or 5th round. So I think, 8th, 9th, or 10th probably makes sense. And because of my QB situation, I might do that. And if and when Deshaun Watson comes back from a suspension, then I can take Tom Brady and flip him at some time. But I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I think that name that came up at the very top, Rashad Bateman, is just calling my name, is one of my favorite wide receivers in last year's class. And he had a really great fall camp, and he ended up with an injury.
Yes, that's right.
And the hype was real there. And then you have a draft. Well, I guess also happened last year was Lamar Jackson was in and out of games because he was injured for some of them.
Yeah.
So here comes draft day, and there's a huge trade where Marquise Brown heads over to play with his former college teammate out in Arizona, Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
And now you have this sort of wide receiver 1 opening here for the taking. Not to say that he wasn't going to be the wide receiver 1 before, but man, that is a great spot to be in. And clearly Lamar Jackson Maybe his favorite target might be that Mark Andrews. That seems like he feeds him the ball quite a bit, and that's what happened last year. But Rashad Bateman, I think, can be a great wide receiver #1 for the Ravens for a long time, and you're playing with Lamar Jackson, and so I think you have to go with Rashad Bateman here.
Yep.
We're in the
at the back end of the seventh, and Rashad
so
Bateman.
We get a pick again really quick here.
Yeah. So let's get Rashad Bateman locked in, and you're right. You don't trade away Hollywood Brown if you don't believe in Rashad Bateman. So I think he's going to get plenty of targets and plenty of work, and that's a great addition to our team. And like you said, we're swiftly back on the board again. Most of those players are still there. Who did we lose? Well, Baker Mayfield and Michael Thomas, so not much to write home about. So we're doing pretty well still here. We got Carson Wentz still at the top, Matt Ryan still there at the top, as well as Brandon Ayuk, and people like Mike Williams, who I still think so undervalued just for the production that he had last year. So is anyone standing out to you on the board there?
Yeah, so kind of the way this draft is playing out, I've kind of been setting myself up here for sort of a productive struggle kind of team. I haven't been picking the producers, and I can change that pretty quick by selling some of these higher priced guys for some producers. But ordinarily I'd be looking at a guy like James Conner as my RB2 guy, who's a huge producer. I would just be worried about the longevity there. I've kind of been sticking away from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And Miles Sanders, it seems like is in a good position this year after the draft. So he wasn't a big loser from the draft, so he's somebody I consider. The two wide receivers up here, Brandon Ayuk and Jameson Williams, that we didn't talk about. We talked about Mike Williams.
Yeah.
Ayuk is somebody was pretty high on. He had a fantastic rookie season. And then somehow ended up in the doghouse for his second season. And I'm not exactly sure what that was about. And towards the middle of the season, and the end, he started producing again.
Yeah, he crept back towards the end, which was promising. But I'm still worried about that. The way that he was just outed.
Me too. And so I think looking down here, it looks like Derek Carr is far enough down and behind 4 other QBs that I can wait around on Derek Carr. So now it just comes down to, do I want one of these, in a sense, guys that can get to maybe be RB2s in CEH, Miles Sanders or James Conner, maybe even Kareem Hunt, or do I want to try and take another shot on one of these wide receivers? And we didn't talk at all about Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, believe it or not, he was also
the unhappiest man in Las Vegas. His face was priceless. Poor. I'm sure he's happier now that things have settled in, but he was not happy on the night to end up in Detroit.
So he was a former Buckeye too. He was with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, all under Brian Hartline at Ohio State. And he made the correct decision to transfer down to Alabama and then just blew up. And he has a very particular skill set that I think the NFL is really high on. And I'm not exactly sure what the plans are in Detroit. Where this all shakes out with at the main position.
I was so tempted to say neither are they, but I'll
So Jared Goff, I mean, they're not getting out of that position, or that they're probably going to use him for the rest of this year, I'd imagine.
I think so.
But however that shakes out, I look for the QB situation to probably probably change. And then Jameson Williams is he got hurt last year.
That's right.
And so you're going to be waiting for, I'm not sure exactly when he's going to get back, but call it 6 games where you're not going to get to use him.
Because it was was it an ACL injury he had?
I think it was his ACL. You'll have to confirm that, but I think it was his ACL.
Yeah.
It was in the championship game that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's somebody that's just sort of like intriguing. And hey, man, we've been going all rookies. So why not like just continue to add here?
Yeah.
I guess I got my seat's getting too hot and I got the rookie fever here. But here's my perspective on this. Jameson Williams, when you look at KTC, is way higher than these guys that I'm looking at the rest of the board here. And so let's say, we get through the season and maybe Jameson Williams is, rehabbing and he's going to come back sooner than what people are thinking. And he's got that first round hype and, people get excited for him.
Yeah.
And then we do the compounding thing again. And we take Jameson Williams and trade him in for Brandon Cooks, like we were talking about before, and pick up a first on that.
Yeah, you use that pendulum you were
second.
talking about, yeah.
That's right. And so I think right now we don't know where to draft rookies in ADP. And I think by the time the season gets started, some of these rookies might be pushed up in their ABT a lot higher than they are right now.
Yeah.
And so if I kind of take advantage of some of that and take him with my 8th pick here, and then I'll be looking at Derek Carr for my 9th to kind of shore up that QB room.
Amazing. So let's get another rookie locked in. Yeah, I love this. The rookies are available, and immediately we're taking them left, right, and center. So I'll love it. Let's get Jameson Williams locked up. We want to see as little red as possible on the screen. We don't want to see any quarterbacks coming off. We certainly don't want to see Derek Carr coming off. Matt Ryan's just gone. Can you feel like the temperature increasing every time you see a little flash of red in the hot seat? Just gets that little 2 degrees warmer. And Carson Wentz has just gone off the boards, but it looks like we might be okay as we're swimming back in. As pick 9 goes, pick 10 goes. Ooh, pick 10 was Jimmy Garoppolo. Ooh. So just a little teaser at the end.
No, and I doubt that this is where the simulators don't do as well, because nobody's going to take Jimmy Garoppolo over some of these other guys that are have the starting spot. So
so you got a welcome break there for taking all these rookies and doing everyone a favor, and picking from the 11th spot and entertaining the fans. You got a break from the simulator.
Thank you. So here's my thinking on Derek Carr, right? So I wrote about it in the Intelligent Investor, which I wrote that Derek Carr was a sell. And that was after Devontae Adams trade. So I thought he produces at a certain level, then he gets Devontae Adams, and everybody gets really excited about what his season could look like. Is he going to be at the back end of QB1 here? But there's even been concerns about Derek Carr sticking around and for the Raiders. I think those concerns have kind of gone away, given the commitment they made with Devontae Adams. So that's there. But when you're looking at KTC, Derek Carr's price is way higher than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins went a few rounds before this. I think he went in the 7th, and that's just like nobody gives Kirk Cousins any props for continually putting up those back end QB1 seasons. And so here's a situation where you kind of can take advantage of the circumstances, right? I'm getting Derek Carr in the 8th round. Maybe he lights it up with Devontae Adams, and then I sell him for I can prove out using trade calculators, and I can sell him for Kirk Cousins and some more draft capital down the line. So I think Derek Carr is from a QB perspective is the highest KTC price guy left. and somebody, if things kind of pan out the right way, you can use to trade for maybe even a sturdier guy like Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think Derek Carr's just been great value on here. He's sort of crept up, his value's crept up on the shows we watched, but yeah, it's getting him in, the back end of the 9th round is absolutely great. And you're right, you can take advantage of that pendulum. I really like that analogy you give in the first segment of that pendulum, really just take advantage of that when it's up here. And and it's amazing. I'm always amazed by what can actually sway that pendulum. Like, it might be a video of Derek Carr and Devontae Adams having breakfast together, and people go, oh, it's just like Cooper. Like, things like that. It's amazing how easily the pendulum does sway. So it's getting that times just right, and selling when you have a chance, or buying when you have a chance. And here we are in the 10th round with, one of the big winners of the draft, Darnell Mooney, sitting up at the top. Chicago, like we talked about earlier, didn't really do too much to strengthen that wide receiver room. And you have Justin Fields already. And is that a strategy you have? I know some people like to do that, like have those stacks and have those pairings of players. Is that something you lean into, or is it just kind of something that you'd fall into by chance?
No, I definitely look for combining and stacking.
Yeah.
Sort of when it's the right situation. So like last year, as much as I could, I stacked the Bengals.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase was a rookie, so you didn't have to spend a first round pick on him. And then at that time, Joe Burrow was coming off of a tough knee injury, leg
That's
injury.
right. Yeah.
So you had the ability to take that and stack it. And when you have those opportunities, now offenses like Chicago, where like you're kind of worried about the sort of the situation and the available, what the opportunity looks like around them.
Yeah.
That makes it a little bit tougher to do that. And then from a stacking perspective, generally, like, you like to do stuff like that in best ball, where that becomes more of a priority.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe just straight dynasty where you're kind of setting positions each week. And so that's definitely something I think about. And Darnell Mooney being at the top is definitely sort of catching my eye. Can we look and see my team here, what it looks like?
Yeah, of course.
Where the positions are.
So let's have a look. You've got your 3 quarterbacks sort of locked up, 3 excellent quarterbacks. So you got 1 running back, Breece Hall, and you've got your 4 wide receivers with Burks and London and Bateman and Jameson Williams, and then that 1 tight end that you wanted to get at the start, Kyle Pitts. So, lots of youth, lots of, great players sitting there already.
Right. So I generally don't like to spend too much value or capital on the next running back, especially if I don't feel like they're like have very good chances. So I'm looking at kind of like Chase Edmonds and Ramondre Stevenson, and I'm thinking, although I could potentially use a running back at this spot, I'm not really liking, any of these guys' opportunities for their prices to appreciate too much. I mean, Ramondre was one of the guys that I was pretty high on, but the Patriots drafted 2 new backs to add to Ramondre and Damian Harris there.
Yeah.
And you just worry, like, okay, so what is that going to give you? You need these guys to get out on the field so that their price can appreciate.
Yeah.
And I would be kind of worried about that situation. Darnell Mooney, to me, didn't grade out very well in my prospect profile. However, he's performed fairly well, and that might just be like the sense of just being able to have the opportunity to be the number 1 guy. And maybe he's really good, but really he's just been the best guy on a team with not very good wide receivers so far.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure how good or not good he is. One guy, a couple guys that stand out to me here, Juju Smith-Schuster and Rondell Moore. I was pretty high on Rondell Moore. Kind of being a one-on-one guy, it's pretty short.
Yeah.
But from a prospect profile perspective, he broke out really young. His production was just off the charts for his first season, which you like to see. He tested very well from an athletic perspective. So it just came down to kind of his size, and it wasn't that generally wide receivers tend to be a certain size or above. It's just that we just haven't seen very many people, very many guys with his production and draft capital at his size in the NFL. So everybody's just sort of worried that he's sort of an outlier. I'm not really thrilled about the spot, given that Marquise Brown is there now, and then you have DeAndre Hopkins that ended up getting suspended for 6 games.
Yes.
And then you have AJ Green there, and a couple of tight ends. So like Kyler Murray runs a pretty productive offense. You just worry about what could be there for him from a production perspective.
Yeah.
And then the Kansas City's offense, that sure is really interesting because you have Tyreek Hill moving to Miami, and then his production gets divvied up between MVS, Juju, McCole Hardman.
As a Chiefs fan, I'm just not thrilled about the prospect of MVS. Like I'm sort of a bit, and that's. Yeah, I actually seen Christian Watson there. I was going to speak about Christian Watson too. And then, is that the fear with him that he is just going to be the MVS replacement?
Yeah, I mean, that's so definitely something to consider. I think from Christian Watson's perspective, I was just not thrilled with his prospect profile. Smaller school.
It's so hard to tell, right?
Didn't produce very much. I mean, I think, through the draft process, people got a little bit more comfortable with how competitive he could be. But that's just one of those guys that he got the lottery ticket of a landing spot. But if he didn't have that landing spot lottery ticket, I'd be like, I wouldn't put a high probability on his success other than he gets to play with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So, I think this is kind of a weird spot. I really don't like anybody on the board here. I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go with Tom Brady here.
Nice.
And that this is the 10th round. So, we're talking potentially somewhere in the 8th, 9th, 10th range. So I think I'm going to go Tom Brady here. And what I'm playing for here, obviously, I don't think that he's going to be around forever. What is he, almost 50 years old now? But he's still putting up
800, 900. Yeah, like he's
he's still putting up elite seasons. And what you do here is his price is low. So I imagine if he's good again for another season, his price will appreciate tremendously, more so than anybody I could see on the board right there. And, you find one of those teams that is, competitive and doesn't have a QB and needs one. Yeah. And then you sell them for a first or second, whatever the best you can get is next year. You probably wouldn't get a first, obviously, but maybe you can get a high second for him for the team that's, wants to sell out and win it all.
Or you might be able to send Brady and a second for a first, like just kind of give it a little bit extra. Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And so that's the guy where the price doesn't necessarily match out with what it could be halfway through the season. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna kind of secure up my QBs here so that I'm good to roll. And we're also, I took chances on QB. I took Deshaun Watson, who could be out half the season. Who knows? Could be out a full season. You don't know. And I took a chance on Justin Fields that he maybe gets to that elite potential. But if those two are misses, I still have Derek Carr and Tom Brady. And the rule that a lot of your guys, the tips that a lot of your guys, your former guests said was, you got to make sure you secure the QB. And so
absolutely,
you don't want to be trying to trade for QBs because they're almost impossible to get. So
I love that. And Tom Brady, perfect to come in and to slot right in. And when Deshaun Watson's suspended and not playing, you're playing Tom Brady, which is, you're not going to notice too much of a point differential. So, that's an amazing quarterback locked up. And now you don't really need to worry about your quarterback room in terms of how your team is. You can always pick those guys up for value. But you're pretty happy at quarterback. And we are now sitting at the back end of the 11th round, pick 11 in round 11. And, Robert Woods sitting up at the top. I don't think so. Robert Woods that's kind of got under the radar, right? Like Robert Woods went to Tennessee, and now AJ Brown's not there anymore. I know they've obviously drafted his replacement, but could it be that they traded away AJ Brown because they think Robert Woods is so good, or is that just kind of reaching a bit?
It could be. I've particularly always thought Robert Woods has been fairly undervalued throughout most of his career. Somebody that produces quite a bit, but you could always pick up later. I mean, we're sitting in the 11th round here.
Yeah.
Now, you worry about the injury and coming back. But, I mean, the same thing can be said about Keenan Allen. Those are guys, if you're in a compete now mode and you're not drafting all these rookies like I am, kind of doing this productive struggle type of thing, those type of the guys would be the guys that I'd have high on my list as guys that produce really well that you can get a few rounds later than you normally would. And they'd show up really well on the PE metric. And so, those are the big guys that I would use my high price guys to kind of target those guys, and then hopefully get some price appreciation after they start playing and earning points. So the guys that stick out to me right now are Christian Kirk and Skye Moore on this page. I'd also venture George Pickens there at the bottom.
Yes.
So Skye Moore, I have pretty high in my prospect evaluation. I actually have him ranked right around or right below Garrett Wilson, so in that second tier. And remember, Garrett Wilson, we needed to get him in the 5th round if we wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
5th or 6th round.
6 rounds on, and Skye Moore. And
now we're getting Skye Moore, who didn't get the major hype of being a top 1st round pick, didn't come from the pedigree of an Ohio State. Wasn't like a Debbie or Darling or anything like that. But he's a very, very good prospect, and he produced really well in college. It's kind of what you're looking for. And he also gets the
golden ticket
landing spot lottery. Now, it was a little later than we thought it would be, but he still was drafted and got the draft capital he needed to know that they're going to use him. Now the question is, how does the depth chart play out in Kansas City? And clearly, like, the offense runs through Travis Kelce, so that's not going to change. And then we kind of alluded to this before, but you picked up Juju and MVS, and then you had Mecole Hardman, and I'm not quite sure how all that plays out, like who earns what the starting spot is.
I would hazard a guess, Chiefs fan. I think we're going to see a lot less Mecole Hardman this year, because he just constantly has these blunders and these moments, and they often turn a game, and then Mahomes has to come back and rescue it. I would like to see Mecole Hardman appear less and less, and Skye Moore, take some of the Tyreek Hill shares, and then almost all of Mecole Hardman's shares as well. That would be ideal for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So our lads, the depth chart, I kind of talked about having that up
Yeah.
as something to refer to. They have MVS, McCole Hardman as the two outside ones, and then they have Juju in the slot, and then
Yeah.
they have projecting Skye Moore behind Juju.
Okay.
And so that's kind of the first level thinking there, right? It's like, where do all these guys kind of fit?
Mm.
But I'm not so sure that that's exactly how Andy Reid thinks of all this stuff.
No.
And I'm not sure that MVS and McCole Hardman, like you were saying, are necessarily like your go-to starters. Now they might be the starters on opening day,
Mm.
but I think a guy like Skye Moore can come in and outproduce right away if given the opportunities.
Yeah.
MVS, played a few years with Aaron Rodgers, and from a fantasy perspective, was just kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
And McCole Hardman, you can make the argument, you're behind Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and there really wasn't. But I saw him being outperformed and outplayed by some of the the third and fourth numbered wide receiver in the depth chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if I was owners of those two guys, if I had MVS or McCole Hardman, I wouldn't be so sure that those are locked in starters. And so right here, I like to kind of take a chance on Skye Moore as being the guy that actually could end up, he gets the draft capital and he could end up, eventually taking out one of those guys to be a starter. And I'm not sure exactly how it all plays out. They currently have Juju slotted at the slot, which I think we learned that he's better there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can mix and match and play it maybe not the way that people are, conventional wisdom would say it would go. And I think Skye Moore could end up being, the best option at wide receiver for Kansas City.
And
you get to play with Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, and you're just talking about conventional wisdom, and Andy Reid is anything but conventional. So I think he's going to be used in lots of really fun and really, really interesting ways. So I think Skye Moore is a great pick here. I'm certainly very excited to see him play, for my Chiefs and to see what he can do. And even like Travis Kelce, I was listening to like the Dynasty News podcast, and Rich Dodson said, Travis Kelce's like, he's not on the back nine, he's like on the 18th green putting, like he's almost done, like he is this close. So yeah, that's going to free up, hundreds of targets. I don't know how many targets Travis Kelce gets, probably 5,000 a year, but there's a lot of targets to be freed up in the next couple of years as well for Skye Moore to have.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's got to be exciting for you. I mean, you're not exactly sure, how you feel about the Tyreek leaving aspect of it, but it's got to be exciting to see what they can do with these guys. And it's I was pretty high on Skye Moore. I'm glad that they got him and they give him an opportunity. And there's nothing to say that next year they can't. If MVS or McCall Hardman don't live up to what the expectations are, that they don't hit the wide receiver again next year, and then you're looking at an offense that could be Travis Kelce, Skye Moore, Juju, and one of the top wide receivers.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know if they'll fall that low, but but yeah, that would be what I'm kind of thinking about. But maybe like a Jordan Addison or a Josh Downs or something like that.
Yeah, it feels like a bit more of a rebuilding process now, and it's I've at the start I was gutted when you obviously seen Tyreek Hill leave, but how can you not believe in Andy Reid and this team all around him, and Mike Veach and all the guys there, they do a great job. So you just got to trust the process and hope that everybody comes out the other side smelling like roses, like the Chiefs seem to have done the past couple of years. So I'm finally feeling like I'm over the Tyreek Hill trade, and Skye Moore coming in has helped ease that blow a little bit. So I'm excited to see what happens and who ends up being the star in that offense, apart from Travis Kelce.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, and We're in the 12th round now. We've got, some interesting players sitting up at the top there. Hunter Renfrow obviously coming off a great season, more competition there now. Malik Willis is sitting there as well. Are you thinking, right, Malik Willis, you talked about, obviously, the theme of this show has kind of been this pendulum, right? And, 4 weeks ago, Malik Willis was all the way up at the top. And now Malik Willis is all the way down here, the opposite end of it. What are you thinking about his value? Is it time to, jump in and grab him at this stage because his value's lower than anyone ever guessed it would be? Or have people actually found out that he was never that good?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's never that good. I don't know what that is. I think the NFL has certainly spoken though.
Yeah.
That not being drafted until the third round. I think that tells you what you need to know about these quarterbacks. And it wasn't just Malik Willis; it was Ritter.
Yeah.
And Howell. And
even Carson Strong did Carson Strong even get drafted? He get picked up after?
Strong wasn't drafted. And Matt Corral too.
Yeah.
And so generally, like, here's the rub though, right? So like QBs is a position where your price can appreciate tremendously if you get an opportunity to start.
Yeah.
The problem with these guys is, generally something that makes you secure at the quarterback position is being drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
You get a lot more opportunities if you don't play as well. So basically, these guys that get drafted in the third round, call it, or second round or whatever, something similar to like what a Davis Mills is.
Yeah.
From last year, where the guy gets the opportunity, people pay a decent price for him, but there's always this overhang of, well, next year are they going to replace me with the CJ Stroud, the Bryce Young, and something like Jalen Hurts, whose value went up tremendously after the draft because of what they were able to put as a supporting cast for him.
Yeah.
Even up until last year, there was just concerns about is he going to get replaced, and I think they're even still trying to decide if they want to replace him.
I think so.
And he was not drafted in the first round. So I think from my perspective, you want to kind of stick to QBs that have been, especially when they're young, have been drafted in the first round because they kind of get a little bit of leeway. Because it's not easy when you're young to come in and be a good NFL QB. So you need the time to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, those are all guys that I'm kind of avoiding. Now, when you think about rookie drafts, and you can get one of a super class rookie draft, and you can get one of them way lower than you thought you would, you'd want to take the shot because their price can appreciate if they start any games next season.
So I see Malik Willis go at 212 today. He went at 212 in one of my drafts today. I was like, ooh. That is obviously I'm sitting in the fourth round, like I talked about. So I'm just looking and going, oh wow, that's that's the lowest I've seen him go so far.
So just something to think about. Like, and maybe you like players you think have better upside, but like you can create tremendous price appreciation from some of these QBs. But from my perspective, I kind of got the QBs. I've taken all my bets there, and I kind of shirted up with getting some bets there. So. Yeah. I'm not really paying attention to too many of the QBs, and I personally am kind of avoiding the Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter, even though there's a potential for price appreciation. I kind of avoid them for those reasons. So I one name that sticks out here, keep sticking with the rookie theme. I also really like Christian Kirk. That's kind of like the follow the money situation. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is kind of getting a bad rap. I think maybe his rookie year can be a throwaway year given everything that happened with the head coach and with the organization and maybe the support he got. But they definitely gave him some support this year, and you might argue that maybe these aren't the top tier guys at each of the position, but they certainly pay them like top tier guys. Christian
Yeah.
Kirk was a guy that I really liked coming out of the draft, and he was kind of meddling on Arizona's depth chart.
Hmm.
And last year, kind of on and off again, he had some really, really good games, and I think that he could be someone that's worth something that can produce now. They paid him like a wide receiver one. I think Trevor Lawrence is a lot better than what people, how people are down on him this year.
Yeah.
And I think the offense could be a lot better. You're getting Travis Etienne back, who I
Yeah.
was pretty high on. And so, again, it's a question mark offense, but it could be one of those interesting ones where, you kind of stack those guys at the later rounds of your draft if you're thinking about best ball, where you can kind of all stack them together and you get some pretty
Yeah.
cheap options.
Hmm.
Christian Kirk could be the end of that stack. Also, George Pickens, he's somebody that I have a pretty high opinion of
Hmm.
as a dynasty player or as a prospect. I think he's got the talent level to be a wide receiver one. He had an injury late in his career in his third season that
Hmm.
he worked himself back and ended up playing a little bit in the final game. Um, um,
Which kind
but
of shows
I
you
think
that's good dedication as well, right? He didn't need to do that. Like he could have just sat out and didn't have to come back for that last game. He could have just made sure he was ready for the NFL because he's going to get drafted. But the fact that he did that is a good sign of how hard he's working and how much he just wants to play football.
exactly, and there are some potentially some character concerns from him. I don't know anything about that, but what I'd say is it seemed like it pushed his draft stock down a little bit. Whereas normally, or if those weren't there, maybe he would have gone in the first round. And
Uh,
then the landing
yeah.
spot, I'm not exactly crazy about because I'm not crazy about the QB situation there.
Mm.
I thought Kenny Pickett was the best QB of the bunch, and that he went in the first round generally gives him higher odds of success than the rest of the group that went in the third round.
Yeah.
I like to use this analytical model at the Football Outsiders called Cubase, and they publish it. And Kenny Pickett scored a 0 on that. If you're positive, if you're positive, you're really good. If you're negative,
Okay.
not that good.
So zero's okay.
The rest of the QBs were negative. Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett was the best when it came on that model, and he gets first round draft capital. So I imagine it seems like they're going to go with Trubisky this season, or at least for the first part of the season. But I got to imagine what they put into. I mean, maybe you have another Trey Lance situation, but they put in a first round draft capital. I think they like him. I think he'll start playing, but I'm not sure whether he's good or not. He definitely
Yeah.
is a lot lower in my prospect model than the QBs last year. So Fields, Lance, Trevor Lawrence, and even Zach Wilson. So
Yeah.
I'm not too high on that. But, one thing to keep in mind is that Pittsburgh does do a good job of finding good wide receivers.
Yeah.
And so I'm not exactly sure how Claypool pans out. He's the jury's still out. Deontay Johnson is pretty good, but I think there could be a spot for George Pickens on that offense. So, somebody I have a pretty good high opinion on from a prospect perspective, and, not a great landing spot, but, a place where he succeed. The one
Yeah.
question I have for you is I don't think I have any running backs. I have Breece Hall, but I don't think I address running backs.
Yeah. I think
I
you've
don't
just
really
got Breece Hall. Yep.
I don't really like the running backs on the screen. So maybe we can click on the running backs tab and maybe see if we can find maybe Rashad White or something like that down there.
Oh yeah. Well, there he is right away. Rashad White is sitting right there. Ronald Jones is there as well. Is anyone else standing out on that list? Not James Cook is sitting there.
James
Who's
Cook,
an interesting prospect.
Yeah. So obviously I'm scanning and looking the rookies since kind of I've adapted this rookie
Yeah.
rookie draft, which you're not supposed to do. Don't do this. If you're doing a productive struggle, don't. That I guess maybe something like this is fine, but like if you kind of want to be at least somewhat competitive, so you sprinkle the rookies in there if you want, and you kind of get your other producers or whatever. But like when I started, when I was saying from the beginning, I think people don't know where to draft these rookies yet.
Yeah.
And so I think all these rookies could be increasing their ADP even over the next few months. And so you can make trades. And that's what I'd be kind of looking to do here with some of these that, I kind of get out of some of these spots. So, I think I'm going to go with, I've kind of dragged on and on here. So I think I'm going to go with Rashad White here. He was drafted in the third round by the Bucks.
Yeah.
I think he's fairly undervalued for, kind of being a rookie.
Yeah.
They have Leonard Fournette there that they just signed back. But I think the thing that stood out on Rashad White's profile was he was very good at catching and being part of the passing game. And so I think that they have Gio Bernard that they had last year. I'm not sure whether it clicked or not, but I think Rashad White has a good shot at taking that Gio Bernard role, that James White role in Tom Brady offense. And so I think he could be one of those guys where his price appreciates. I have him below some of the other rookie running backs in my rankings, but I think given the opportunity and where we're sitting right now, I think Rashad White, I got to go with him here.
Yeah, I really like that. And obviously, we've seen a pretty, Brady to White. They did all right. That was pretty good combination, I suppose, right? So I think, Tom Brady's going to be really happy to, be thrown to another pass catching running back with the second name White. That brought him a few rings. So you never know, he could end up with another one. Like I think he might run out of fingers by the time he's finished playing. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And here we go into round number 13. We've just got running back. I'll pull up all positions for you so you can have a look and see who's sitting up there. This is
not a good board.
No.
I mean, there's some guys I like as some shots, but these are kind of dark shots here.
Yeah.
One guy that's interesting is Khalil Herbert at the running back position. I wasn't too high on him from a prospect perspective, but I think last year I saw that he was pretty good. So David Montgomery went down for like 4 games, and he was the lead guy, and he could play in that role. And he's young, and running backs, you kind of want to stay on the younger side. So like he's somebody that I could see if Montgomery goes down. And even if Montgomery doesn't, I think they might start to use him more. Obviously, Will Fuller, he's awesome, but it's tough when he doesn't see the field very often. He's a free agent now, so you're not even sure what the situation is there. So you kind of worry.
He doesn't see the field
there.
legally either.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert, sure, but I don't know. I generally try and stay away from the 49ers backfield. You never know from week to week, let alone year to year, what that's going to look like.
He is. I will bet, I don't know, let's say £100 that Raheem Mostert will get injured next season. If he does not, I'll give £100. I'll show you the fantasy wildcard streamathon is running at the minute, and they're doing raising money for Mind Charity, great promotion. And if Raheem Mostert goes the full season next season without getting injured, I will give £100 to the Mind Charity, because he will get injured.
I'm hoping for no injuries for him.
Me too. It'd be great for Raheem. It'd be great for Mind. It'd be great for everyone. But he will get injured.
Yeah. All right. So I think looking at these running backs and looking at what we have available, of trying to find situations where I can see players where their price appreciates, I'm not seeing much. So I think I'm gonna stick with the running backs and go with James Cook here. And James Cook, he was drafted in the 3rd round by the Bills. That's the landing spot lottery kind of thing that we were all talking about. I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't too high on Cook coming out. But just the landing spot's too good to pass up. And I'm not really a believer in Singletary and Moss. I think we've seen what they can do. The Bills' offense is just one of the best in the NFL. You always worry about what the running back looks like when you have a QB that can run. How well that running back could produce, especially if you're in a committee with Singletary and Moss. But I'm taking James Cook out of all those guys because we've seen what Singletary and Moss are, and I don't think they're it.
He's the player Josh Allen would want as well, right? He's a guy that isn't, the big, heavy downhill runner like, Zach Moss is. He's someone who's going to be there as an outlet to catch passes, to kind of cut in and out, and let Josh Allen continue to do, most of the heavy lifting. So I think he'll really complement Josh Allen the same way that, we talked about earlier, both of, the Whites that were playing running back for Tom Brady. They'll really complement, the way that Tom Brady likes to get that ball out nice and quick. I think, Josh Allen is going to really like playing with James Cook.
Yep.
Not that Tom Brady's rushing as much as Josh Allen. So here we are really back on the board really quickly again in round number 14. Okay. Will Fuller still sitting up there, we talked about earlier. Yeah. And the now invincible Raheem Mostert, obviously, is still sitting there as well. I feel the players.
I kind of want to take him so he's on my team, so that it's like I can cheer for this $100 for this charity $100.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm doing this draft. I got to stay on brand here.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go Isaiah Spiller. Now, unlike Rashad White and James Cook, where I wasn't like crazy high on their profile. White had some good production points, but I wasn't. Yeah. He's got the size, so like you got to take him a couple rounds early because people really like him.
Yeah.
But Spiller, he didn't get the draft capital that people like to see. They like to see third round capital and above. But he was one of my favorite prospects at the running back position. He produced really well throughout his college year. He's got the size. The one area that kind of dinged him was his athleticism. And that's largely he was slower than the guys that typically have success in the NFL. And so, that kind of pushed him down. And he went to I think a really great landing spot with the Chargers. The Chargers have a really good offense. Yeah. And Austin Eckler is a very good fantasy player. I have him as a buy. He scores a ton of fantasy points, but he needs a complement to his game. They need a bigger back, and they haven't had very much success finding that bigger back.
They've been trying as well.
And they've been trying, and I think who knows? This is kind of a risk here because generally guys that get drafted in below the third round don't necessarily always pan out. But given his profile, it was kind of in the fourth round, it wasn't like I'm taking a seventh round guy here.
Yeah.
I think there's a spot for him to really do well this year. And, there's other guys like that I might have higher in my rankings at the moment, but I'm really intrigued by the Isaiah Spiller spot. And there's guys like Dameon Pierce that have, lucked into a good spot in Houston where they might end up being the best running back in the spot. But I wouldn't be so sure that the next year he doesn't they don't draft a first round draft pick in round one. I think the situation in for the Chargers is Eckler's going to be there. Yeah. So what you're getting out of a Spiller. Like you're not worried that next year they're going to get they're going to move on from Eckler and draft a first round draft pick.
Yeah.
There's going to be Eckler and Spiller as a 1-2 punch committee, and hopefully you can get some price appreciation from that situation.
Yeah,
because we're here drafting him in the 14th round here. So
and that team that Chargers team's got plenty of holes on the defensive side of the ball, and they chose to pick Spiller there when they could have filled some holes. So obviously they've got things in mind. You don't just pick him to sit on your bench. Like he's going to play and he's going to add some fantasy points to some owners. So I think that's really great value there in the 14th round, or was it the top of the 15th, 14th round, as we're now at the back end of round number 15, as Damian Pierce is, we just talked about, he is sitting right there up at the top, along with Mecole Hardman is there as well. We talked about him there too. Did someone take Mostert? Raheem Mostert is gone, sadly. Oh dear.
I cannot believe that Mecole Hardman is this far down. Like, I would not select him, no matter how high he is.
Yeah.
However, I kind of have the same viewpoint as you do. However, like, I just imagine, like, and I would guarantee, I bet MVS is down here too. Like, why are people not pushing these guys up? These are guys that you want to see go high, so that it pushes the guys that you want lower. Don't take them, but you want them to go higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, clearly there's some quarterbacks here that, if I didn't secure up my quarterback, I might be, looking to take maybe a flyer on as, like a late producer. Like, for instance, Mariota, if he ends up having a decent season with throwing the ball to Pitts in London, and they kind of want to stick with him. I'm not sure that's the case, but, you could find a team that's interested that, doesn't win now, that maybe would be interested in that. I'm going to speed it up a little bit here and just kind of go right to the guy that I'm looking at here. But I'm looking at Rondell Robinson.
Yeah.
This guy is taken in the second round by the New York Football Giants. Looking at this depth chart, it doesn't seem like a great landing spot, to be honest. Looking at the depth chart and the sort of the supporting cast here.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones, but I don't think we're going to have to wait too long for that change to happen.
Yeah.
And then you got guys like Kadarius Toney, who always seems to, have some issues with the coaching staff, but he's got those really high upside type of weeks that he can do. And then you got Kenny Golladay, which I'm not high on, and Sterling Shepard, who has been very, very good. But we're talking dynasty here, so you don't want to be drafting the old guys where you can't then flip them or trade them, even if they are doing well.
Yeah.
And so that leaves sort of Wayndell Robinson, and this is kind of the same thing that we were talking about with Rondell Moore earlier, where he gets kind of knocked for having being short, but everything else kind of fits.
Yeah.
So and then from a production standpoint, he put up some really good numbers in college this last season. So you're getting a wide receiver with good draft capital in the second round, where will probably play some. That guy kind of sticks out, and I think he could be definitely one of those ones where you get through fall camp and you're like, hear the rumors, like, oh man, he's looking good, he's flashing, he's looking good. Who knows what they do with Kadarius Toney?
He wanted to get traded.
If he gets traded, who knows? If they bench him, or he could be playing and taking some of the attention away from guys like Wayndell or Shepard there. So I think Wayndell Robinson there in round 15 here.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Kadarius Toney Kadarius Toney was long gone. He was rounds and rounds and rounds ago. So getting the guy that might actually take Kadarius Toney's place, because Kadarius Toney is spitting his dummy out and deciding he doesn't want to play in New York or whatever. That's great value there. And you're right. Now we're in the round number 16. We got 3 picks left to go. And this is where it gets, interesting, and it's just sort of, all about upside here. This is why it's great. We've got these new rookies, because I was like, on the start in these last rounds, just take a rookie flyer and see what happens. But is there anyone? I don't think we have any rookies on the board. Oh, we have.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go really down on the board. I'm not even sure how far down he is. I had a pretty high opinion of him coming out. His name's Brian Robinson Jr. running back for
Brian, yes.
Washington Commanders.
Let's see if we can find
He's right below Zamir White there.
Oh, Brian Robinson, yes, at the Washington Commander. Yeah, he's. So every time the Commanders drafted a running back, I was like, oh, yeah, it's just saying about my poor Antonio Gibson shares, because the Commanders they brought back J.D. McKissick, they drafted Brian Robinson, they're bringing in, how many running backs do they have? It's more than any other team in the league, it must be, because like every time I look at the news, it's like Commanders have signed another running back. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, and so this is like you said, sort of that kind of where's the flyer here?
Yeah.
And Gibson is the guy that kind of can do it all. He can be a pass catcher. He could pound it in on third down.
Yeah.
The problem with Gibson is that he's been injured and hasn't been able to play all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they kind of have this backfield where I think what they were trying to do was Gibson kind of paired with McKissick, and McKissick would kind of take on those passing down. But now they have Brian Robinson, who's a big guy. He can pound it in. He's kind of been hidden on the Alabama depth chart. He's been behind guys like Najee Harris and Josh Jacobs and Damon Harris, who are all now NFL running backs. He's just been kind of the second fiddle there. But he can be that guy that pushes it in, punches it in.
Yeah.
And so if you want to keep Gibson healthy, right? So you let Gibson be the guy that goes from the 20 to the 20, and you pepper in McKissick on passing downs to kind of save Gibson. And then you're thinking about guys that can pound it.
Yeah.
Brian Robinson is that guy. And if for whatever happens, Gibson goes down again, and then you're comparing, then your committee is Brian Robinson with McKissick paired together. But McKissick isn't like a threat to Brian Robinson Jr.
Different player.
It's a different player. And so, I really like that opportunity there. So I like Zamir White. I've touched on him. I think his opportunity is good, but I think I'm going to go with Brian Robinson over Zamir White. The other guy I'm thinking about that's good. You got it. The other guy as another sleeper on there for running backs. I mean, I like Zamir White. Is Chris Evans. He was a running back last year for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And he, Mixon's obviously the guy there, but he showed they have a guy like P. Ryan as maybe the second, but he showed some really good flashes on, particularly on passing work. That would be something, you get into the 19th, 20th round where I'd be thinking about picking him. So I think the next guy I'm going to go with is David Bell at wide receiver for the Browns.
David Bell, he's right up at the top. Yeah, David Bell coming in as, in that Cleveland, it's all different now as well. But you're right, with the Browns getting Deshaun Watson, like if Deshaun Watson strikes up a partnership with anyone, their value is going to go huge. And if it's David Bell, then he'll be a name on everyone's lips if Deshaun Watson starts passing him the ball.
Yeah, and who's to say it's not Donovan Peoples-Jones or obviously Amari Cooper is going to get his share too.
Yeah.
And they got a couple of good tight ends, but we talked about stacking and elite QBs and how that, could create an opportunity for somebody's price to appreciate quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so David Bell is somebody that was a Debbie darling. He produced really well. And then kind of like Isaiah Spiller, he just didn't run very fast. And then he gets the draft spot or the spot lottery here, and gets in a good situation with the Browns. And I'm looking at the Browns depth chart on our lads, and there's not much there. You have Amari Cooper, obviously. Yeah. And then the other starters, they have Donovan Peoples-Jones penciled in, and then they have David Bell penciled in as a starter. And we're sitting here, in the 17th round, and I'm getting a potentially starting wide receiver in a Deshaun Watson-led offense. That has a good rookie profile and maybe it's just a little slow. But there's been slow wide receivers that have been very, very successful in the NFL. So it's not a death curse there. I also like KJ Hamler. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. So he just doesn't have the draft capital, but I really liked him as prospect. I like John Mechie, but I think I just like David Bell's profile and his situation better. So I think I'm going to go with David Bell.
Let's get David Bell locked in. And hey, look, we found Marquez Valdez-Scantling as well. He's all the way down there with Romeo Doubs and Brian Edwards. But we'll not concern ourselves with him just now as we get.
Yeah, we need the
Bell.
masses. We need the masses to push him up so that he push other players down for us, I think.
Yeah, let's get him up there so some sucker can take him. Let's do that.
Yeah. I have no place to say who's good and who's bad. They're all NFL players, right? But from a fantasy perspective, I'm not sure that you want to be making your bets with Mecole Hardman or MVS.
No, I think you're spot on.
From a team building perspective, I need a tight end. This is the last pick, so I got to go tight end here. The only tight end I have is Kyle Pitts.
Not bad.
Yeah. Number one dynasty tight end.
Yeah,
probably a first round pick for most, especially if you're tight end premium.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anyway, there's some guys I like here. I generally tend to try and stay way out of the middle of the tight end class, so I don't like to, get the middling tight ends, the low end tight end ones type of guys. I'd rather just kind of wait to the end because at the end you can find guys that put up as many points on a points per game basis.
Way cheaper.
There's a couple way cheaper. There's a couple that stand out. Obviously, if you're going to continue the rookie theme, Trey McBride, he gets good draft capital. Yeah. I'm not crazy about the situation that he's in. He's in Arizona, behind Ertz, and there's a lot of people that are competing for targets there.
Yeah.
But he would probably, if I was going to go rookie, he'd probably be the rookie that I'd go here. Even though I do like guys like Jelani Woods and some of the other ones. Mm-hmm. I like Brevin Jordan. Jordan didn't get the draft capital last year, and but he ended up in a good situation, and actually he played really well with Davis Mills. So he'd be one of the guys that I'd be looking to target, and he's high up on the list. The other one that I'd say is on this list that I like is David Njoku, and this kind of goes down to the sort of the stacking. I'm kind of going all in here on the Browns here. I got Deshaun Watson and David Bell, and I could put Njoku here, and I really like Harrison Bryant, but I think that they have enough space for two tight ends to play the game, and he gets Deshaun Watson, and if you remember, Njoku has been somebody that hasn't necessarily been pleased with the Browns front office, but he got his new contract, and now you pair them with Deshaun Watson, and coming out, Njoku was like one of the higher rated prospects at tight end. So you just don't forget about those guys. He's not necessarily old, but he's somebody that I think if you take him here, he can give you that low tight end one, production, and his price could increase substantially if he's able to get that because of just getting to play with Deshaun Watson. So I think I'm going to go Njoku here for the last one.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, and Njoku has shown these just. On his day, David Njoku looks unstoppable. Like he looks like the best tight end in the league. And what we know about Deshaun Watson is that Deshaun Watson, makes, masterpieces, with, I don't know, what's a good analogy, using crayons, right? He's surrounded the Texans. He wasn't surrounded by very much, and he still led the league in passing. So, what's he going to do with David Njoku? I think he's going to make him a better player, and that's exciting. And what a player to get with your last pick.
Yeah, that was it. Let's see what the last one is.
Let's see. Yeah, you always got to see who the last person in the draft is. Jonas, but well, we set a bit of a tight end run there. Zamir Wright, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Mike Davis, really. Mike Davis comes off the board, and Jared Patterson is the last player coming off in our draft. So let's have a little look at the team that we've built up here, Jay, and I've got a feeling that it's going to be really good. So we have our 4 quarterbacks: Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, Derek Carr, and Tom Brady. Does not get much better than that. That is amazing. We've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. We got Breece Hall, the first rookie picked in the hot seat this year. We got Rashad White. We got James Cook. We got I got Isaiah Spiller. We got Brian Robert. I can sense a theme with the running backs.
Yeah,
that is fantastic. So we got 5 rookie running backs. Some of them are definitely going to hit, I think. So that's good gamble bringing them in. And then we got our wide receiver room. We got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers: Treylon Burks, Drake London, Rashad Bateman, Jameson Williams, Skye Moore, who's going to be an absolute hit for the Chiefs. I know it. You got Wandale Robinson and David Bell. How are you feeling about your wide receiver room?
Well, hey, this is the first one with rookies included, and I'm trying to do something a little different here.
Yeah.
I ordinarily wouldn't say, draft a full team of rookies.
Yeah.
I've talked about that before, but
it's pretty cool, though.
I'm loving the way this looks.
Yeah.
I'm really loving the way this looks. And, there's a couple of, guys that fell, like Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
That, I think could really smash here too. And, these guys like Treylon Burks, there's nobody in his way. So he could be his wide receiver 1 for his team. Drake London, clearly like Kyle Pitts is a big part of that offense, but nobody else at wide receiver. He could be a wide receiver 1 for his team. Rashad Bateman, he's probably the wide receiver 1 for his team. Skye Moore, we talked about the situation in Kansas City, but I'm not high on MVS. I'm not high on McCole Hardman. Juju, we kind of have a little bit of an idea what Juju is, but I think Skye Moore could potentially be the wide receiver 1 for his room. Yeah. Wandale Robinson, I'm not particularly high on Kenny Galladay. I'm not sure the Giants are either. Kadarius Toney, maybe Kadarius Toney is the wide receiver 1. Maybe Shepard is, but I don't know how long it is. But Wandale, given the second round draft capital, he could be your wide receiver 1. Yeah. David Bell, obviously, you have our Amari Cooper there, but like in a Deshaun Watson offense, yeah, sure, but it's all rookies. But I really like the fact that there's a lot of opportunity there for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Opportunity, just left, right, and center in this team. And then we got, Cal Pitts and David Njoku there. And just remembering from the start, we were saying, Cal Pitts might not be the starter on game week 1 because he could have been traded away for Mark Andrews plus or someone along that lines. Just getting the most value out of this team as possible. And what a way to kick off this new rookie class by drafting every single one of them in our team. It's so exciting.
I missed Garrett Wilson. I didn't get him.
Yeah.
I miss Chris Olave. Those are my Buckeye guys, and I didn't get them.
You can trade Kyle Pitts for those 2 plus, right? You'll just do
that.
Right?
Yeah. I love the setup for QBs too, man. I love the way that is. I was surprised that Justin Fields fell to me in the 3rd. Yeah. I see him going in the 2nd. So, even Deshaun Watson and Justin Fields, I think those are the great long-term options, and I've set up with Derek Carr and Tom Brady to kind of carry me. And I can even trade those guys to win now guys later down the road. And for running backs, I got my 1, Breece Hall. I think, you can see like price appreciation similar to what we saw from Najee Harris or Javonte Williams with Breece Hall, where next year you're not getting him in the late 3rd or early 4th. You're getting him maybe even by the start of this season. you have to use your late second to get him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think, and then I didn't focus on an RB2 until later. And so, you know, those flyer running backs, those are all rookies that maybe might have a shot at being producers this year. But so my second slot for RB is not great if I was competing, but that's not what this is. This is all about trying to capture price appreciation and value, maybe take advantage of people not knowing where the rookies should go. And, you know, later in the season, maybe trading some of these guys to get some better producers and make your team a little bit more competitive. But honestly, from a dynasty perspective, like you said, we got all of them. So in general, I'd like to maybe do some compounding and get a couple extra 2023 firsts. But for the most part, I think we got an incredibly valuable team for a few years here that we can keep doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love the look of it, and it's great you got all those rookies in there. And you know, Jed, I just want to say thank you so much again for coming on and, you know, sharing that really, like, you know, different way of looking at things with your hints and tips, and, you know, really analyzing, you know, the numbers and looking at price versus value. I really love that. And, you know, that pendulum theme we had, I'm definitely going to be having that in my head now. That's sort of ingrained into, you know, thinking about when a player's value is up here or down here, and keeping that analogy close. And just, you know, remember, everyone, if you're watching, you know, give this here a big thumbs up. Let's see if we can get Jay up on the Hall of Fame here. The more thumbs up he gets, the higher he's going to climb up. So let's see if we can get him into our top 3. And you can find him at _ Jason Stein on Twitter. Check out his amazing articles on Dynasty Nerds to you know, read into a little bit more about his value system. And just you want to remind everyone one more time about that promo code you've got over at Dynasty Nerds again.
Yeah, so if you're signing up for if you want to be in the nerd herd, or you want to use the cool tools at Dynasty Nerds like Dynasty GM, and you sign up for a membership, you enter the code INVESTOR when you're going through the checkout, and you'll get 15% off.
Perfect. Enter that code INVESTOR for your 15% off, which is, you know, it's a great thing as well. I'm a nerd herd member, and it's great value already. So getting 15% off is absolutely great. So, Jay, once again, thank you so much for coming on, and thanks everybody again for watching and listening at home. And just reminding everyone that until next time, everybody keep themselves and their teams lit. See you later.